That simply holds you in place on one side where you're not used to being. And I guess that makes a difference. But it tended to prove to me that I was not a normal one person, that there was two things being dealt with. And I think it's just genealogy. But I think it was just genetics. And we just haven't gone into that much. People who understand stuff, they shouldn't talk about it. It's not going to do them any good, and nobody will believe them anyway. And it can do them harm. So I try not to tell anything, well, anything even from the past much. Except the other day, the day of the full moon, I kept seeing somebody dressed in red, brilliant red. Coverall, sort of. Not the whole business, just a red coverall sort of thing along the side. No head, no hands, no nothing. Well, there was a hand, yes. But nobody owned up to wearing red. No, I don't like red. No, I'm not wearing red. But that was unusual. Usually I don't see things so brilliantly colored. Except perhaps the day or the night that Kes was born. I was seeing visions, and there was a bunch of little kids, about 2 and 3, all wearing peaked hat, little overcoats. And anyway, all these little kids gathered around, and they would go right through my knees and my hands, and I would go right through them. But they wouldn't leave me alone, and finally, to get rid of them, I had to go and lie down flat on my foam pad floor bed, and the minute I relaxed, they relaxed and went away. But I had to stop in order to stop them. And looking out the back door once, I could see a bunch of people. They were young people from almost every family on my mother's side. There was something about the place, and what I saw at the back door was not what was real. Now we're getting into your virtual world. There was an old tree I'd never seen before, and an old small building I'd never seen before. The barn was gone. Not even the old barn was there. There was an old wooden barn there when I first went, and they got rid of it before they put the new one up, and they had to burn it one day. That was interesting. The flames and stuff went straight up. There was no danger. But, as I say, the backyard was not the backyard I knew. And that could be your virtual intrusion, if that's what happens in the world. More virtual than you'll ever know by looking at a screen. It's an uncanny feeling. And I never told my landlord. I got to the point where I quit telling him things. He was very good. He was the world's best landlord, I think. Because he didn't know what he was getting into, and I didn't either. So we made a good pair. But as I say, if I'd been smarter, but I never was a smart person. The obvious to somebody else was not obvious to me. Because I'd been brought up with everything and hadn't been forced to do anything or take charge or anything. So I was a Dumbo, a real Dumbo. A sitting duck for anything that wanted to do whatever it felt like. And the weirder the better, because that made sure nobody would believe me. And they'd think, oh, she's a crazy nut. And I think a lot of people did think that, and yet a lot of people were very kind and very generous and helpful. 40 years ago, I stepped on a nail and had to have anti-tetanus shots, and I was already taking a muscle relaxant. And it all ended up with me being a sort of form of an ND ear. I woke up one morning in a different world, and it has never changed back. Now, I think that really pushed things along for 40 years. But the only way I could get rid of it seemed to be a different world at night up in the sky. The only way I could get away from that, well, the daytime too, was to move to the country. And out in the country, it was no longer in the sky, it was sideways at the neighbors. So that's what happened when I moved to the country. That's why I went. I could stand it better. At night, there was no getting away from it. And in the daytime, if I went to Victoria Avenue Church and played the piano for 3 or 4 hours, which they let me do 3 or 4 times, because I used to go there as a kid, for 2 or 3 hours, everything would be fine. I think it was the using of the hands. Everything would be fine, and then little by little it would seep in. I'd hear somebody half a mile away, or a dog bark or something. And at night it would get worse. It was like another world closing in unless I played the piano. And I was in an apartment without a piano. I didn't get one till I moved back to the country. But that more or less saved my sanity in the city. You see, I was strongly left-handed, and that's what caused the trouble in the first place. Not normal left-handed. My left-hand had taken over. Let's see. Very right-handed. I won't use the left anymore as I used to. And yet now and then I have to. For instance, to turn over in bed, if I'm going to use the railing, which is the way I do it, I have to use both hands separately. But I don't use my coffee cup in the left hand anymore. I was doing that. And, well, I haven't tried it anymore. I simply told it was not going that way anymore, and that was that. Now we go right-handed on the coffee cup. Oh, everything I've worked so hard for in the past, say, 10 years would be lost. I think it simply hinges on which way I want to go. Well, I know which way I want to go. And I suppose as a kid I didn't know. Whichever side I lie on in bed at night makes a difference. I just knew you'd ask, and I don't know whether to tell you or not. It makes a big difference in how the radio works. Whether I get certain stations or whether I can easily make it move, or it's difficult. Sometimes I can't get the CBC when somebody's got the TV on somewhere, or maybe it's just me, I'm not sure.